Windows Movie Maker.
Oh, really?
Yep.
What
It's very simple.
what
I need simple.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, guys, let me jump in here real quick. Hey, welcome to Bunto's Political Will to Do Something Right Hangout. And all truly beautiful things there is because we have three fabulous guests. We have Mr. Jeff Keller, Pyongyang, and a newbie, Robin Dupree Reed, the famous one. Welcome to the show, Robin.
Love it. Thank you.
And what we're talking about is, okay, the spectrum of selling out. Is America going towards horror-think, and should we retain our integrity and values? First, we asked Robin if she would go Christian if the guy was rich, and of course she vehemently said no. She would stick to her integrity of being an atheist. We're all atheists on the show. So I went to the other end of the spectrum. What if the person was a militant atheist? So tell us your views on that, Robin.
Wait a minute. Can we go back up just 1 second?
Sure, we can.
You didn't ask me if I would go Christian.
Alrighty.
Okay, and I would never do that. You asked me if I would marry a Christian man just because he was rich.
Sure. How
And
about
I would
that?
never do that either. Neither one would I do, but there are two different things there.
If the price is right, welcome, Fabio.
I would not do it. No.
Hey,
I
Fabio.
still would do it, but...
Hey guys.
Fabio, this is my friend Robin. Robin,
Hi, Fabio.
Hi Robin, nice to meet you.
You too.
So, Fabio, what is your price to sell out to a Christian?
Sorry, what is my price to sell out what?
To sell out, to marry a rich Christian woman, what would be your price, your asking price?
I wouldn't have any problems marrying a Christian woman. I mean, what fucked up
Well,
question is
you
that?
want to make money. You want to make money, right? So
No. Hold on a second. I would marry a Christian woman for free. I don't see the problem in that.
Well, okay, we're talking integrity. Like,
Integrity.
would you say your atheists values are at a certain integrity where you would not sell out, to be with a Christian? Follow that thinking?
Okay, I might be really naive around here, but I don't see really a conflict here.
Why not?
I mean, if you like the person, again, unless you're telling me that being an atheist or being a Christian is the only pivotal point of your life and everything absolutely resolves around it, which I am not sure about it. I mean, unless you count some crazy fundamentalist, that I might agree.
Okay, let's give it the crazy fundamentalist.
Oh, the crazy fundamentalist, she's got to be filthy rich. I mean, a huge amount of money. But she's got to be crazy fundamentalist, if you get what I mean.
What do you think, Jeff? Crazy fundamentalist?
Oh, I did. I'm actually married to a Christian woman right now. She's not. Thankfully, she's not a crazy fundamentalist, but she does believe in God, and it is like Fabio said. It's not a pivotal part of our relationship. We differ in that particular point, but there's no conflict. I don't tell her she shouldn't believe what she believes, and she doesn't tell me, dictate anything to me. But if I'd known that I could have held out for 7 figures or not, that does give me pause. But otherwise we've been married for 30 years, and we're very compatible and very happy. And part of the reason why we're happy is we don't tell each other what to think or who to hang out with. We have a great relationship and friendship and great marriage and love and all that. And so nobody had to pay me a dime to marry this lovely Catholic person to whom I'm married and have been married for so long.
And by the way, I failed to mention that. I'm sorry, Robin, but I am in the same boat as Jeff. I've been married for 26 years.
Same boat.
Yeah, it's the same boat,
Yeah,
I've been married 26 years with a Catholic, and we've been together, for 30 years. So again.
And so you've learned to, mitigate any sort of religious problems between the two.
Honestly, I mean, I'm really honest here. We've never had a religious problem.
It's never been a problem.
At all.
So when we were married, we wanted to get married, and we got married in a church. I didn't have a problem with that. But the only reason we didn't get married in a Catholic church is because we would have had to commit, or at least pretend like we were committing to if we had children, which we never did end up having children, but we would have had to commit to raising them in Catholicism, and it's only because of that that I didn't want to get married in the Catholic Church, but we got married in a Protestant church, and probably today I would have rather not gotten married in any church, but it's not a wedge issue. My wife's a peaceful, loving person, and I love her for that. She has a great sense of humor. Otherwise, she couldn't be married to me. So we have a great thing going, and what her views are about cosmology and metaphysics, well, I think those are important issues. I don't think it's key to our relationship. So,
Yeah.
Pyong, are you there? He's having some mic trouble.
Hey, come back to me, Bunto. I'm in the kitchen.
All right, no problem. Okay, so Robin,
Yes.
religious extremism is the question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how extreme they are. You could probably marry a benign Christian.
I don't know if I don't know. I mean, love is love. I don't really know if I could or not. It would just be a benign Christian, probably so, because maybe I wouldn't even know at the beginning.
Right.
So, I mean, you can't really help who you fall in love with, as they say. So, I guess I probably could. But if it was like a fundy or something, or a really devout Christian,
An extremist.
we wouldn't. I mean, we wouldn't even be in a conversation that would lead to anything like that.
Okay, so let's go to the other end of the spectrum real quick. An anti-theist. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, you're going to ask if I would date an anti-theist or marry one?
Well, sure.
Would you?
Well, I mean, there's going to be the activism component, right? And
Well, because we were just talking about you and I going on a honeymoon, so I consider myself to be an anti-theist, and I consider myself to be very militant. So,
oh yeah, so no problem. Well, I mean, Jeff brought up, or was it Fabio that brought up, does your life revolve around that question of someone's religion, right,
Yeah.
Fabio?
Yes.
Okay, well let's bring it in the anti-theism. Fabio, do you think that's in the same category as a religious extremist?
I'll tell you one thing, and I know I'm generalizing, but this is how I feel. I will probably, and I'm saying probably because you never know, I will probably never enter in a relationship with a person who is so obsessed by any idea, that might be anti-theism, Christian, Muslim, or communist, socialist, whatever the hell.
Fanatic.
I will never get in relationship with someone which is his ideology is so present in his life, find as that and that only. I hate extremism of any color. So by the way that I'm done, I would probably never enter in a relationship with someone like that.
Even an anti-theist.
It doesn't matter. It could be someone which he believes in crystals, or it could be into, I don't know, Hinduism. It doesn't matter. If he's so obsessed by that and that alone, I'm so far out from that way of living and thinking that I would probably never enter in a relationship.
You too, Jeff?
I would have problem being friend with a guy like that.
You too, Jeff? Anti-theism is an extremist position?
Yeah, I guess I'm more concerned with how people think than what they think. So if I think somebody's curious, or I'm actually attracted to people who may be drawn to unconventional ideas. So that would not be a disqualifier for me. But I think one of the things I think about atheist thinking or critical thinking in general, which I don't think is synonymous with atheist thinking necessarily, is that people are open to new ideas and open to modifying their beliefs. And it doesn't mean that you can't be passionate or think that a certain set of beliefs is real and important and all that, but I'm more concerned with how you got to that conclusion than what conclusions you get to. So if I met somebody that was into astrology, but they had halfway decent reasons for believing that, which I can't imagine. I may not be, I may still be attracted to that person as an individual. So I don't rule out specific lines of thinking as much as I rule out
Doesn't matter.
how they think about it and whether they're curious and whether they can adapt to new information. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Well, so the manner you would investigate. Okay, Lyric, how you doing?
I'm more concerned with how people think than what their conclusions are.
Okay, very good.
Because
Lyric,
if they think correctly, they can modify their conclusions.
oh, we hope. Lyric, are you there?
Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Lyrics? Do you have any experience with extremism, religious or anti-theism?
I've been both at certain points in my life. Not necessarily to, like theism as in Christianity, but the idea of God. I've been extreme in my views at certain points with that, and I've also been anti-theist. The idea is not important. Like what people are saying here, how we get to those ideas, I guess, is maybe a little bit more important. I try not to date anyone that's extreme.
Right.
I'll put up with a lot, though, just because I think adaptability is a lot more, is a better trait than like, because what makes you adaptable, dude? Okay, check this out. If your thought processes are messed up and you are religious in nature, all right, you take an ideology or you take a concept or a feeling or a belief system or anything like this and you put it ahead of yourself, you are limiting your adaptability. And we see that as unadaptable in today's society. But at least I do.
Yeah, we could look at it that way.
Well, if say that there's a natural disaster, or something like this, and the species was having problems, who do you think would survive more? The people that were prepared or the people that weren't? It's the adaptability. And when you automatically, like sociably, we're talking about sociably in a mate, if there's someone that I see that they are extreme in their views, either way, it says to me that they're not as adaptable in a social interaction with me over a long period of time. I will see them that we will butt heads eventually, because I don't see it as an adaptable trait to being a mate.
That's interesting. You could look at it like the inability to change one's mind.
Yeah, that's definitely that's a quality that lacks adaptability. And relationships are all about being adaptable to your partner and to find their strengths and weaknesses and to work off each other. And if you're not willing to participate in that process, then I find you unattractive as a mate.
I could see that. Pyong, are you there?
Sorry, yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, Eric.
Yeah.
Okay, just as far as like actually, let's say there's no price involved, but to, hook up with somebody with an extreme view.
What's extreme? I don't think anti-theism is extreme.
Okay, that's a good point. Why not?
Well, that just means that you're against religion, right? Is that what you mean by that? That you think religion is not a force for good, or that you would like to see it eradicated, or something like that? I don't think that's very extreme. Unless they pursue extreme behaviors, or, for example, if they would say, you must concede that my point is absolutely correct, or something, I would find that extreme. But go ahead, what were you saying?
Okay, Robin, how would you characterize your anti-theistic views?
I would actually never force my views on anyone, but by the same token, I will be there to fight if you're trying to force yours on me. I really think that religion is what ails us. So I would actually like to see it eradicated.
Pyong?
Yo.
Is that extreme view?
No, that's not extreme.
No.
Fabio, extreme?
What do you mean?
Well, she said, that there's little utility in religion. Is that saying it politely, Robin? Not very much
That is
utility.
saying it politely, yes.
Well, okay. Fabio,
No, I don't agree, but again, I think the disagreement on this kind of stuff, it mostly depends on personal experience and the kind of society someone lives in. As far as I can say, my personal feelings is that I'm not into that mindset. I don't totally agree with that. I have known, and I know some people that for better or for worse, their religion experience made them something a better human being, and I'm all for it. I don't I'm not so keen on judging someone if he hasn't got a proper rational way of getting to each other, each conclusion. So I'm not really into that. Of course, I've problems and issues when those same political religious views get into trying to legislate the way that civil society works. I'm totally for that. But as far as it's still personal, again, I might be biased, but I really know some people that they had some sort of personal experience of religious experience, and they made them better. So who am I to say, okay, that's good, that's bad, so I don't know.
Yeah, good point. Jeff, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Jeff, you could go along with a theocracy in America? Just
A
as long as it was
theocracy?
polite?
No.
Why not?
Well, a theocracy is a government that imposes a certain religion upon individuals. No, I would not go along with that at all.
So a theocracy would be extreme in your mind.
Well, I think the word extreme is problematic.
Willfully
So,
ignore a theocracy.
well, we don't really have a problem with extreme honesty or extreme integrity. So,
Okay.
so extreme is kind of a buzzword that's lacking in content. But as far as a theocracy, no, that would be a horrific thing. Authority by religion or force by religion, that would be something to be definitely avoided.
Okay, you think...
Wait. You're saying religion. No, do you mean the tenets of religion or religiosity? Religiosity, like the worship of things. Do you think like we're a worshiping culture in America here?
Well, I think people can worship whatever they want as long as it's peaceful. But in terms of would we want to impose some authority based on religion to impose a certain religion or a theocratic way of thinking of things, which in my view would be a non-rational way of thinking of things, would be horrific. So I wouldn't support that idea at all. If you want to talk specifics, go ahead and do so. But no,
is it bad just because it's religion? I mean, suppose it was like a libertarian philosophy.
Well, I think imposing anything on people, on peaceful people, using violence on people who are doing peaceful things is bad, whether it's in the name of religion or any other things. That's kind of the libertarian way of thinking. So I wouldn't. I never would say that a theocracy was a legitimate.
Well, okay, Jeff. Let's suppose they vote the theocracy in, supposedly, ostensibly.
Well, I'm not a fan really of voting or of democracy as such. Might does not make right. That's not my standard. My standard is if people are acting peacefully and not initiating force against other people, they should be allowed to live their lives as they see fit. Now, personally, your own morality may be different and all that, and you may not like that. But in terms of what a political system should do, it should not impose violently, which is what government does. Government is not reason or eloquence; it's force. That's what George Washington said. Government is imposing by force certain dictates if it's not properly defined. So a government should not be using force to.
Well, I mean, right now in our country, we're a lot more like you take the 2000 election. That really was not. It was like a selection. You know what I mean? It really wasn't forced what they did there. It was just that they stopped the vote in Florida and, enabled George Bush to ascend to the presidency. You see, that really wasn't force. I mean, what I'm trying to, bring up here is that, yes, you can say that certain things are forced upon Americans, but certain things are like, what would you say? It's rigged upon Americans. I mean, do you believe that election of 2000 was legitimate? Bush versus Gore?
No, I think it showed that elections really have no meaning. So if they're
Oh,
close,
yes, that's a very good point.
If they're close, then the Supreme Court is going to decide which one won, and that's an argument to not vote, because if it's not close, then you definitely won't have any impact on the election. But if it is close, it's going to be just decided arbitrarily. But that was about which personnel would be in charge of the government, which arguably had some effect on us. But in terms of, it's pretty much haggling over who would have the right to exert their will on other people by force over others. It wasn't about
what
the
happened
role
was
of government.
it was a Republican Supreme Court stopped the voting, the recount.
Right.
Well, okay. Well, let me ask you this, Eric. Are you there finally?
I'm here, Big Daddy. What's up?
Okay. Did the election of 2000 make sense to you?
Did it make sense to me? I read I of course read the opinion, and the dissent, and no, that's held. I know several law professors who consider that a bad holding by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court certainly does issue opinions that are wrong, that are wrong on their face, and we usually see that they're. Sometimes we see they're wrong immediately, and sometimes we see that they're wrong much later in time. And that was one that a lot of people saw that was wrong pretty early. So.
Okay, so.
But also, there is something else to that. I mean, just as I don't mean to be very pedantic about it, but Gore did give up. Gore could have kept. Well,
Whoa. I mean, what would we have been at that point?
I shouldn't. Actually, never mind. We'll just. It was a bad opinion. How's that?
Okay, yes.
I totally agree with that.
Robin.
And actually, a similar thing happened in the 1960 election when it seemed pretty clear that
Kennedy won.
The Kennedys had rigged the Kennedy sort of machine, had engineered the tie-breaking Illinois election. And Nixon also decided that he didn't want to delegitimize the system, so he decided to back out too in the same way that Gore did.
Well,
so that's not unprecedented. Yeah.
Okay, so Robin, which is more pivotal in your mind, the 2000 election or 9/11, as far as the direction this country's ended up at?
Wow. That's a tough one, actually. I'm going to have to go with 9/11.
Why?
It was like, I don't know, we were kind of virginal at the time to that kind of violence. I don't know. Sometimes I think if the 2000 election went another way, would 9/11 have happened? So
That's a good point.
That's kind of tossed around in my head right now, so I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, okay, 9/11 solidified Bush. I mean, wasn't he like the most popular president of all time when 9/11 happened?
Right.
To my
I
mind.
believe so, yeah.
So, okay, well, why don't we just say that, you bring up a good point. It depends on who won 2000. I guess the case could be made that, somebody could have, Gore could have ramped up the CIA to finally, give us the scoop on the guys from Saudi, that are here at our flight schools.
Right.
Because you remember when the planes crashed into the building, wasn't like the CIA director Tenet having breakfast with Bush and said, I think that could be, Al Qaeda or something. I mean, like those guys are holding back.
Well, when the plane said Bush was in Florida at an elementary
That's right.
school.
Elementary school.
But okay, who was Tenet? Tenet was having breakfast with somebody when he says, when the planes hit, he said, well,
That was
that
Cheney. That was Cheney, I think. Pretty sure it was Cheney.
Anyway, those guys knew the what up of Al Qaeda, and we didn't until the outcome occurred that they needed to invade Iraq. I believe they weren't going to clue in my pet goat on what was going on. Fabio, how much do you know about the 2000 election in America?
Oh, actually, it's really funny you ask, because in 2000 I was in San Francisco during the elections, and I remember a Cuban newspaper that while everybody was counting ballots, and chat and all that shit, that Cuban newspaper made an headline, and basically the title said that there was a question, and they asked the Americans if they wanted some independent observers to count the ballots in Florida, and I thought that was hilarious. Best thing ever. I never discovered who was the author of the title, but that guy, I mean, should have a Nobel Prize for funny if it ever existed.
Yeah, because the U.S. of course sends independent observers.
All over the world, UN stuff like that. So they asked
Carter
So basically, the gist of it was that they basically asked the UN if they could ask US if they want some independent observers from Cuba to count ballots, and I thought that was fantastic. And as for the 9/11 thing, well, of course it was a shock all over the world, but my opinion at the time, and it's still unfortunately valid, and I think I was right at the time, was that the reaction to the US was completely fucked up. I mean,
but predictable.
Sorry?
But predictable.
Well, I don't know if I don't know at the time, but there are some historical precedents about terrorist attack in sovereign country. No country has ever declared war on terror. No country has ever said, you know what, I'm going to invade another country to stop terrorists. It's the wrong approach for the wrong problem. So, and of course, history teaches that everything which was built up on that decision was fake, was from the wrong decisions. They were riding the wave and all that stuff. But the reaction was totally fucked up.
Right, and the CIA had a term for 9/11. It was called blowback. That's exactly what it was. The U.S. had not been minding its own business on September 10th. They were very much engaged in these countries. Iraq had been bombed for the last decade. Madeleine Albright had said it was worth it to kill all these innocent people in all of this. So this was.
No, I mean,
if you weren't paying attention, this seemed a big shock. But if you were, people were writing about this. This was going to happen. We were going to have this kind of blowback, and it did indeed happen. And
I can testimony for the fact that at the time, apart from some persons, but most of the people were totally flabbergasted by the kind of reaction, because at least in Europe, in Italy, in Germany, in France, even UK, which they were so allied with the US. I mean, we never thought that that the US at the time would be so pretentious to say to all the nations, all of them, we have seen terrorists in your countries, you're dealt with the problem, fuck you all, because I've got a better solution, and I'm going to invade another country. We were totally, taken away. I mean, in Europe, in Italy, and in Germany, it took us less years to eradicate Red Brigades, Baden-Meinhof, Rotterdam faction, than the Americans, had taken to eradicate terrorism in the U.S. So it was the wrong reaction. It was the wrong tool, and again, I'm still blown away by how stupid that decision might have been.
Well, it's stupid on the one hand, but if you look at all the interests that benefit from this in the U.S., the military, industrial complex and all the rest. There are a lot of people that benefit handsomely from this, and for whom this has actually worked out very well.
No, you're totally right. No, you're totally right. But I wasn't getting into that part of the discussion on purpose, because that's of course what happened, and I totally agree with you. I was just thinking about the fact that if you remember all the premise of invading Iraq, and I'm not complaining if it was right or wrong, but the premise was totally fucked up. I mean, the weapon of mass destruction were there, they weren't there. So that was a false premise, but the falser premise was that we're gonna fight terrorists by invading another country. I mean, the starting point was fucked up, and then if you put a lie on that, I'm not even bothered, because it's your whole castle which is built on shit. So
right. Well, okay. Well, let me ask you this, guys. Okay, is there any going back? Can we get back to the time before 9/11, or we're already baked in with our idea of how to handle terrorism?
You're totally fucked up.
You don't understand the system. Plebs, we're plebs. Plebs don't care about freedom. We enjoy watching our betters fight amongst each other. And it's like a soap opera. It's all smoke and mirrors. We can say what we need to say, but this is the way of humans. It's been like this for thousands and thousands of years, and I don't see any sort of change until there's a change.
Okay, well, wasn't Obama supposed to take us back to the time before 9/11? Wasn't he supposed to, make peace?
Oh yeah, and he was supposed to end. He was going to end torture.
He was going to close Gitmo. Remember that one?
He was going to close Gitmo. He was going to make the government more transparent, and
it's amazing how we want someone to save us. How we need someone else to save. I need someone else to save me.
Right.
From some other mysterious mystical force that I can't even imagine, dude. It's
the savior complex. It's very much what we talk about with religion all the time. So
if the next presidential candidate comes forward and just says, "Yeah, I'm going to be George Bush Jr. again," I mean, that's going to work.
Well, that's probably what's going to happen.
Obama was like the anti-Bush. Remember, he was like, the reason that we could have a black president for the first time in our country was because of George Bush, I believe. I mean, that was such a disaster. We were going to have a black president, finally.
Okay, listen, please, I urge all of you to get the stick out of my ass. But the main problem with the U.S. right now is that they still have got that fascination with the strong man, which is something that it hasn't gone really well in Europe during the 40s. So, and that's a big problem. There is also, as Lyric said, there is this strong man savior which has got to pull everybody, and say, okay, let's go. You see, and that's a dangerous problem. It's a dangerous ideology. It's a dangerous idea.
So, what do you think, Rob? Am I wrong that Obama was because of Bush? Or is it because Hillary couldn't take care of her money? Is that how come she lost 2008?
I don't think you're wrong about that. I think, yes, that's actually why he got elected, I do believe. Because we were over Bush, and we wanted something, I guess, to be the polar opposite of him.
I remember Bush couldn't even go outside. Remember, he could only go to military bases, and probably if he would have, played out for another year, he probably couldn't even go to military bases.
Well, he probably couldn't have gone to foreign countries because he would have been arrested as a war criminal. But Obama has pretty much continued the Bush foreign policy. I mean, there's really not. There's some superficial differences, but he pretty much was the third administration of the third Bush term, if there had been one, has been Obama. He has not departed from that at all.
Yo, Big Daddy. Yeah.
Isn't Obama your boy? Chicago?
Isn't Obama my boy?
Right.
Did I vote for Barack? No.
You didn't vote? You voted for Mitt Romney.
No, I didn't vote at all.
Oh.
Good.
Why not? Why didn't you vote?
Well, because, first of all, there are a lot of reasons why I didn't vote. It frankly, in the state I'm in, it doesn't matter. We don't have enough electoral votes that it would even make any difference. But I listened to Barry, and I heard a lot of hyperbolic rhetoric, and it would have been nice if it was true, but I obviously didn't think any of it was true, and it turns out it wasn't true. So, and then I didn't really care for Mitt, so I'm not one of these people who think, oh, you have to get out there and vote. What are you doing? So, that was about it. You want to know? To put it in a nutshell, it was remarkably unimportant to me who won.
Really?
Yeah,
You're that
remarkably
apathetic.
unimportant.
Okay.
Because I'm not apathetic. I
Okay.
think I'm realistic in that, and
Well,
just like what
I agree.
Jeff said, Bush. I'm
It
sorry.
wouldn't have
Barry
mattered to Hillary. I mean, what's her name? Sarah Palin as president. It wouldn't have bothered you.
I thought. Well, first of all, just like what you said, it was my opinion whoever won the Democratic nomination was going to be president because of the abysmal failure that was the Bush administration. So I always got a big kick out of Sarah Palin. I have a buddy that I always talk politics with him, and he thought, "Oh my God, dude, she could be president." I'm like, "She's not going to be president." Like, right. And yeah. So no, I never was afraid
It's
of
like
Sarah Palin at all.
building the nuclear. Okay, go ahead, son.
I did want to make a comment, and this is my perspective, and I'm not saying that it's true. It's my subjective conclusion, and it could be wrong. But what Fabio said about the strong man, that is, I think that's absolutely true. I think that's a real statement. There's a lot of talk and things, and cynical people might say, well, they're just fucking it up, But I don't think so. I think that, the United States, and Jeff probably has an opinion on this too, is the reserve capital of the reserve currency of the world. And that's one of the reasons why we can run massive deficits, take out, just print money and that sort of thing, and it's an unfair situation.
For now,
But,
it's
but
not
one
gonna
of the
last.
reasons, right, and you might think that, there could be something that would eliminate that, but one of the reasons why we're the reserve currency of the world is because we have the largest market in the world, the bond market. But another reason, I think, there are a lot of influences, and one of them, again, this is my subjective conclusion, is our military strength. That other countries look at us and they say, well, the United States military is strong and the country itself is probably not going to fail. But it goes beyond that as well. Because what we do is when we have people who are operating in accordance to what we want, we allow them to run trade deficits against us. Okay?
Right.
When people are doing things that we don't like, we bully them using economic sanctions. And Jeff, I'm sure, would say that's a form of violence or
Absolutely, it's an act. Well, no, it's an act of war. It's not just my opinion.
And
what sanctions are definitely an act of war.
Right, and the sanctions that we have are enforceable as a result of our military. That's I absolutely believe. So the fact that the United States dollar, the U.S. dollar, is the reserve currency of the world, is a result of a spectrum of influences that we have, and a not insignificant one of those influences is military. So it's part of the status quo, and I absolutely don't agree with it, but that's my opinion. Like I said, I might be wrong.
Fabio?
Wow, I mean, after what Pyong said, I'll be. What I'm going to say sounds really stupid, so I'm going to feel really stupid, but fuck it. And I think there are two good things that Bush did. First of all, was a godsend for some comics in the U.S. Was brilliant.
Yeah.
And the second thing, keep in mind that at the time in Italy, we were at the top of Berlusconi political career. So the fact that you guys at Bush actually allowed me to make some jokes to some friends in the US. So to me it was a godsend, and for 8 years, wow, I would never see that coming. So that was the only good thing, because we're so fucked up that, I could snicker at some friends in the US.
Well, guys, let's just kind of accept the way things are, right? The next guy who's going to be in office is going to be a Republican who's going to dismantle all the regulation agencies we have in our country.
Correct. Why do you say
I
that?
would not say that at all.
Nope,
No.
Nope, no way.
Well,
No.
I mean, don't you think we swing in a pendulum? I mean, do you really think
We
that Hillary
need
Clinton?
we need the American empire to operate now at its peak capacity, dude. There's
Um,
not going to be any change
Yeah.
in the economic plans, man. We got to
No.
keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's right.
Reagan was elected. Reagan had the most convincing anti-government rhetoric.
Platform.
He was speaking libertarian terms. He got into office and government mushroomed under him, just as it has done under every other regime. So to say that the Republicans are going to do anything that is anything other than cosmetic is ludicrous. It's going to be business as usual, and they're just trying to brand themselves. It means absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter a hill of beans whether there's a Republican or a Democrat in office in terms of the end result. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, with an economy like that, it's sad to say, but the voice of the American people would be strongly steered by other factors. See what happens now with the price of oil. It's a thing. I think it's about what, $50 a barrel, $60 a barrel, stuff like that,
Yeah.
which is insane because there are no economical reason why the price should be that low. There is no economical reason. There are political reasons.
Yeah.
The oil cartel is basically fucking up with Russia, and they're doing that really well. But they're fucking up with the US too, because the only oil reserve, the crude oil, is automatically off the market. So, and this is just one thing, but there might be a lot of other things which eventually they will steer the public opinion in one direction or the other, which will have nothing or really few things to do with what happens in the US right now.
Really? Okay, what's the most important thing the next U.S. president has to do for America?
Well, end the wars.
Well,
It's not going to
that
happen.
hasn't happened yet, Jeff. I mean,
Well,
what?
then there's nothing important that they will do. So who cares who wins?
There's nothing that any president is going to do from this point on until the foreseeable future. Nothing is going to change. It's the laws of just humanity, dude. If the shit stays the same, it's just going to stay the same, and the only thing that's going to change it is the people.
How about this? The most important thing that the next president has to do is keep the market up.
The only thing that could that I think has probably more likelihood to change things than anything are just the mathematics of this. That you can't finance these wars and devalue your currency forever. So I'm sorry to say that when this ends, I think it's going to be really ugly. I would like to see it be a soft ending where somebody would be elected and say, we just need to end these wars and this insanity. I don't see that happening, but mathematically it has to happen eventually.
When?
There's no way this can be sustained.
When?
They can juggle the debt around forever, man.
Well, they can print currency for
There's other
for
black
the
markets that
foreseeable
aren't out in
future.
the open too.
When the dollar gets devalued so much, I don't know what that point's going to be, but when it is, the dollars aren't going to buy anything, and they're not going to be able to buy the war munitions and all the stuff that's needed to have this global war on terrorism or whatever abstraction they want to have, and it's going to end mathematically. It's not possible if the dollars are not sufficiently conveying value. Then you can't have these.
How much inflation have we had in the past 10 years?
More than has been measured officially. They don't usually measure like food prices and things that people really buy, commodities.
Just off your head, average, you know.
I don't know. I don't know what the.
I'd probably say like
exact number.
15%, maybe.
Yeah, that's probably right. That doesn't sound too off.
Do you think the acquisition of assets that our country has gotten so far has kind of outweighed that in the overall scheme of things, not necessarily on the individual level, but do you think our assets have outproduced our debt in these endeavors? Are the benefits
the
outweigh?
U.S. debt is endless. I mean, The
I know,
U.S.
but
can't
when
really.
you cut it off, dude, when you cut it off, you have what you gained and what you lost, and you have to balance it out. Do you think we're at the point now where we have gained more from these excursions than inflicted on the populace? Do you think it's worth it? The
Uh,
influence and the
we
assets
we
and stuff?
collectively no, but there are certain people who have benefited enormously from these interventions, and they're the reasons why they perpetuate. But no, the rest of us are being led dry by these
So, do you think
interventions.
that if the wealth was shared amongst the populace, do you think that that would be a good thing? Do you think like war for profit, um, if it benefits the whole society, is a good thing?
No, I think it's theft. If you're stealing things or violently acquiring the wealth of other people, then that's an act of robbery and theft. And no, I don't think we're better off.
Are
And I
are we
Perhaps it.
benefiting? Are we benefiting from these wars on an individual level? Say like the past 50 years, has our culture benefited from this everlasting war that we've been
No,
on?
I think
Has
it's
your
been.
standard of living increased? Has like have I subconsciously accepted the fact that I'm willing to put up with all this killing because of the benefits that it gives me?
Well, I think you've been extremely compromised if you have accepted that as a good, that plundering and stealing other people's property. If you have personally benefited from that, then I think
I
you
just
need to
mean
do.
overall,
You
dude,
need,
because
you
I
need
think
to
that's
do
what's wrong with the
I
American
know.
people.
No, well, overall or whatever. I don't know what your point is, but if you're saying if you
The
have
people
benefited
want this,
from
dude. We want this. That's what I'm saying. Deep
no,
down inside, we want this.
who does? What's this royal we
Well,
here?
people aren't stopping it. That means that they, dude, you don't understand. Like,
No, it doesn't follow that people want to rob other people or that they understand what's
they
going
want
on.
other people to do it for us.
But if you benefited from a bank robbery, does that make it a really good thing? No. And if you've benefited collectively from your government robbing other people and taking resources from those people and giving them to you, yes, you can say that you've materially benefited. But have you morally benefited and not been corrupted by this? No, you've absolutely been corrupted by it, and you're a criminal. And yes, we can say if you get away with it, you've benefited from it, but you haven't morally benefited, and this is not a good thing if you have done so. If people are stealing stuff for you, yes, you'll benefit materially, but you're bankrupt morally. I'm sorry.
okay, well, let me ask you this: Pyong, is there going to be a day of reckoning within the next administration financially?
No, probably not. No, not that I foresee. What I'm looking at now depends on who the Republican nominee is. Depends on what Florida does. Depends on what Ohio does. Looks probably like Hillary though, and Hillary is a status quo gal. She likes it just the way it is. So I don't.
Whoremonger. Another one.
No,
Yet
I don't.
another one.
So I don't foresee anything changing with regard to
Okay,
that.
why does it have
But
to be Hillary?
the other thing I would say is she's not only in it for the wars, but all politicians have metrics that they track to see if they're successful, so that they can get reelected and they feel good about themselves. And one of those is obviously the GDP. And as you'll probably remember from the credit seizure of 2007, 2008, the investment banks, probably what is it, 6 or 7 investment banks control. It was about 60% of the economy. So if you want an increase in GDP, it only follows that you're going to establish policies that benefit the investment banks. So what I've seen is a trend of money. We have money that is typically borrowed at the lower level, and it's siphoned out of the United States. That middle, I think of it as a pyramid. Okay,
All right,
the bottom of the pyramid is you and me. Consumers. We have a consumer-driven economy,
fine.
and we go into debt. We try to work. We try to live our lives, but we have a consumer-driven economy. A lot of the money goes to other countries because they are doing a lot of the manufacturing. Not all of it, but they're doing a lot of it, and we're getting more. That's this globalization trend. So the base is going into debt, and it's generating income that is leaving the country. And so the middle of the pyramid, I imagine, is gone or diminished. Okay.
All right.
But then the top of the pyramid, let's just take for example China, but I don't want to make it seem like I think China's an enemy or anything like that. We could just as easily say Germany, Japan, Great Britain, UK. Pardon me. But the money then flows back in to the United States at the top because we are the place to invest. We have like I mentioned before, the bond markets, the stock markets, and that sort of thing.
Right.
And so that keeps our GDP thriving. It's not good for citizens. It's not what do they call it? It's not a populist thing to do. But that's kind of how I see it's been going, and I don't see the election of any president, whether it be Hillary or whoever the Republican nominee is, changing that. So.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. How come China hasn't figured this out, or have they?
China hadn't figured what out. Totally different situation in China. I mean, I think
our balls in their hands
was like. I think they were complaining because their growth was like 8% last quarter. I mean, come on. China's doing great, but what haven't they figured out?
I mean, don't they have our balls in their hands?
How?
Like. Let's suppose the reserve currency thing goes away. I mean, we're done as a country, right?
Reserve currency goes away.
Yeah, all of a sudden their money becomes.
Wealth is based on assets, dude. Wealth is based on assets. It's not based on your currency. The United States has plenty of wealth among its borders. Just selling our natural resources, we'll be able to sustain ourselves for years. Just because we're the reserve currency doesn't mean that if it goes away, there's going to be a point of calamity where shit hits the fan, but it won't like take away from our assets. We could just say, hey China, guess what? We're not going to pay it, and they can't do shit about it. And
is that true, Young?
No, I mean if something like that were to happen, it would probably collapse our current currency, which would have devastating effects on our economy. But yeah, I'm not sure. But it could be bad.
Yeah, nobody wants to start digging up Yosemite. That's that's the big problem there.
Oh, please explain.
Well, when Lyric said that we have the mineral resources and all these kind of things. Sure, we do. But again, most of it is tucked up on federal land, and most of it's been turned into parks. So.
Oh, I thought our wealth was like just our wealth. We have it spread all over the world, right, Lyric?
Oh, well, absolutely, sure. But I mean, I'm talking about the stuff under our feet, right? I think that's what Lyrics was trying to get at.
I consider wealth like assets, physical commodities.
That too, I agree. But when you were talking about, just basic, I mean, agriculture is and all that competitive. The U.S., I mean, is good for grain and stuff, but it's not really all that competitive compared to other places. So, but we do have a large amount of vast mineral and that kind of resources.
Jeff, let me ask you. You believe in the sanctity of the market, correct?
Oh, I just came back. The sanctity of the market, I wouldn't phrase it quite that way.
But of a market, in the libertarian society.
I think the market is the expression of the morality of free exchange, free enterprise, and all of that. So I think the market is compatible morally with an ethos of freedom, non-initiation of force against others. So.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, right now we owe China a lot of money.
Right. Well, that's kind of collectivist thing. I mean, do you personally owe China a lot of money, or does your government?
Well, I mean, Jeff, how do you do that in your head? I mean, you just just remove yourself, divorce yourself from your country. I mean, we owe China a lot of money as a whole country.
Well, hold on, Bunto.
Your country's government may have borrowed. Have you borrowed any money personally from China?
And it's not. If I'm not stepping on your toes here, Jeff, I'd like to interject. A lot of what China or other countries. I mean, other countries own a lot of our debt. It's not necessarily that we owe them, like we've taken out a loan with them.
Right.
But for example, they buy the property claim to student loan debt.
Yeah.
For example.
And I I just want to make a couple of points here. So we could look at this, and obviously this is feral land, and just by looking at this map, you can actually see certain anomalies here, right? And if you know a little bit about geology, then these are massive mountain ranges, right? That contain very rare minerals such as gold, silver, platinum, all the stuff that is required. Because flat areas like this, there's not a lot of geological action going on. It's not very interesting in terms of the chemistry of the rock that's happening because there's not much movement simply. So massive amount of minerals here, massive amount of minerals here. Obviously the excuse me, the very famous California gold belt right here. Oh gosh, I mean there's just essentially the entire West is compared to the it's if you look at it, especially in Arizona, these are all very famous areas, all pretty much now owned by the federal government. Surprising, isn't it?
Okay, can we say that China's not going to do anything?
Well, it's probably not in their interest to divest all of their dollars because they'll flood the market and actually devalue the dollars by doing so. So that's kind of this house of cards that we're on right now, where even though the U.S. dollar has been devalued, those who hold it don't want to flood the market with it and devalue it further. So it's a pretty sad state of affairs. But as far as like what you personally owe China, you didn't lend China any money or sell them any bonds or anything of the sort. But of course, your government claims the right, since they have done this, to tax you to pay them whatever it might be. So, like government bonds and all of that, they're really claims against future taxpayers that they can force future taxpayers to pay for something, and that's the same way entitlements work. It's the same way Social Security works.
So, Jeff, you don't believe in paying your government the tax they want from you?
No.
You don't?
You've known me a long time. You really don't know that I don't feel that way?
Well, so you
I saw that one coming.
A tax.
I think a lot of people saw that one coming, but maybe you didn't.
So you're like, what do they have a name for that? A tax? What's it called? Like a Minutemen or something? I remember in my head. It's like
there's lots of
I think the crux of the issue here is that nobody doesn't want to pay. So Jeff is perfectly fine with paying for the services that he uses, right? The utilities, the roads.
If I incurred debt, yes, I would pay anybody, whether or not they were living in China or Korea or whoever it was.
A tax patriot. Sorry, guys, go ahead.
But that doesn't. But again, paying for utilities and roads does not equal taxes. It just does today, right?
So
I think it's a more efficient system to have a somewhat regulated, not a huge one, but there has to be regulation, and there has to be some, at least a group of people that can manage these types of things.
To what end?
To an end of to functionality.
Towards what end?
To make the society more coherent and to, as technologies arise, to place them,
Look, okay.
Well, how's that been going for you? I mean, here we are in this horrible quagmire of debt and this standoff.
But the system of government is corrupt, dude. I'm just saying, if we're going to imagine a governmental system, I mean, you can't talk about the system now. I don't see any point in trying to debate over if our system's good or not, because it's not, dude. No matter what you want to try to add to the situation, it sucks. So I would think that in a well-regulated small government that had that we gave access to them so that they could allow us, they could. I wouldn't say I guess subcontract is the word. Subcontract people to build roads, to maintain power structures, to maintain the necessities for our society to evolve.
Well, I would say initially we entrusted a small government to do all these things, and it turned into a big, horrific government that has squandered all these things and done horrific things with the power that was given to them. So I think that's an argument against giving them this power and the
Absolutely.
necessity of these kind of arrangements that
Oh,
we've
absolutely.
entrusted in them.
And there's this well-known correlation actually between the size of the initial government. It's an inverse correlation actually
Mhm.
between the size of the initial government and then how big it eventually becomes.
Yes.
Because the how free the market is allows for massive flourishing of innovation that mushrooms essentially, and then a very small state allows that to expand, and then it
Yeah.
can take that.
You have
Well, okay.
you have a more prosperous economy and more to plunder, and that's
Where's
how
the
we
happy
get to
medium?
these.
And wait, so as I wanted to say, I had like a very specific example of some just amazing mismanagement that we're seeing. I mean, so I put it in the side link as well that we have these dollar coins, and just so much money that's just languishing. I mean, they spent all this money to make it, and now they're spending all this money to store it, and it's not doing anything. And not only that, but it's also it's a monopoly. It is illegal if you wanted to make a currency. If you want to mint a currency and use it as quote unquote legal tender, you would be arrested. And there's been many examples of the Liberty Dollar and all sorts of these
Okay.
things.
Very good
And-
point, Ace. Let me ask you this, Pyong. Isn't it outrageous that your government wants you to contribute to it?
What?
To contribute to its, function? Isn't it outrageous?
Isn't it outrageous that your government wants you to contribute to it? Well, what the fuck are you talking about?
I can
Well,
answer that.
you pay your taxes, don't you?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yep, you're not going to get away from it. But I don't know. I mean, is that what you're talking about? You kind of putting your own little spin on that you don't agree with
Well, you
Jeff?
tell am I wrong? Am I thinking that I should contribute to my government?
Well, I mean, again, it's like how are you going to get away from it? I mean, you'd actually have to start like a new little country and stuff and say, okay, one of our guiding principles is no taxation. But I don't know of a single sovereignty on the planet that doesn't have taxes. So now, do you have to contribute to it? No, you cannot make any money. If you don't make any money, you don't pay any taxes. Well, you'll actually still pay sales tax, so you're still fucked.
Right.
But but that's just the way it goes. You're be subject to it.
I personally don't think it's outrageous that anybody would want you to contribute to them, but I think it's outrageous that anybody should be allowed to use force or violence or the threat thereof to get you to contribute to it.
What exactly do you mean?
So if everybody thinks the U.S. government is wonderful, then it shouldn't be hard to get people to contribute to it. People think the United Way is great. People think that donating blood is great. People voluntarily contribute to those things. So if people think that the U.S. government is so great in what they're doing, then it shouldn't be any problem to get people to contribute to it. But I don't think people really do think that. And if you didn't have the IRS and the brute force that's used to collect the wealth of Americans, the U.S. government would certainly not be nearly as big as it is. So that would be my first step to reform is make supporting the government voluntary. And you probably a lot of people here tell me all the time they like the U.S. government, and even though it's a little flawed, they like what it does. So I don't think you would. So let's just make it voluntary, and then it could do whatever people wanted to do. And if you didn't like what they were doing, you could stop paying, and they would change their ways. That's democracy. That's real democracy, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have the opt-out option for any other business except the government.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can opt out of Microsoft. You can opt out of Google. You can opt out of any number of other businesses as long as they're not government granted franchises. But you so if everybody loves the government, it shouldn't be any problem for them to be voluntarily funded.
I think the issue is that we have to take away the use of force away from individuals. And how do you take away the use of force from a certain amount of individuals and place that into a 300 million people group. You know what I mean? Like, who gets to decide? Because you can say I don't want to pay this, and I don't want to pay taxes either. Yes, decentralization of power. Like, if you decentralize the power, is it just going to be little pockets of people take specific aspects of the community or of the government or whatever? Like, is some people going to be in charge of the guns?
No.
Some people
What you have to do is to put management as close as possible to the people they're affected by. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go have dinner, so I'll talk to you guys later. I'll be back soon. So.
Okay, well, we'll leave it at. Okay, so.
Well, how do you facilitate the correct balance of decentralization of power?
Well, I have an opinion on that as well. See, I don't think that the economic system in the United States is a free market capitalist system
I agree.
By any stretch of the imagination. I think it's better described as what's known as a corporatist economic regime,
exactly. Or a mixed economy. Absolutely, I agree.
Which is doesn't have anything to do, in case anybody is wondering, with the business entity, a corporation. They share the same Latin root word, corpus meaning body. A corporatist economic regime is a collectivist regime. It's not socialism, but where socialism essentially forbids ownership of private property. In a corporatist economic regime, regulation is tantamount to nationalization of private property in certain circumstances. But another characteristic of the corporatist economic regime is a centralization of power. The bureaucrats derive all of their power, for example, from the central government, and so do the legislatures. Members of the legislature. So, of course, they are going to attempt to coalesce power in a central government, and that is probably unstoppable. So, and the other thing I think, and I'm happy to be wrong about this, is that most economic regimes, despite the political regime, like, for example, Islamic Republic of Iran is also a corporatist economic regime. China is what I would consider a corporatist economic regime. So I think most of the economic regimes on the planet are corporatist.
Right.
Corporatist economic.
And what I would call a free market economy, there would certainly be, if individuals wanted to form a firm or whatever, it would certainly be legitimate for them to sign contracts and.
Well, why, Jeff? Because free market's untenable. I mean, Pyong just explained it. It's corporatist regime.
It's not untenable. It just, in my opinion, it doesn't exist.
No, I'm not talking about what he's. I'm talking about free market in terms of just free exchange, trading value for value, and all of that, and it's legitimate in that setup to have people contract and share profits and losses and all that. But it's not legitimate to be able to sign away or to sign up for limited liability and all this stuff. So that's unfortunately that's what the corporations do, and that's not free market in my judgment. That is collectivism and statism, and that causes a lot of problems, and it causes a lot of the problems associated with corporatism as well, because these entities that exist with impunity can also, by government favors and all that stuff, be protected against.
Well, we know what's wrong with it, Jeff. The thing is, how can we get to the free market if we already have corporations?
Well, you don't have all these kinds of favoritisms. You don't have all these protections against a liability. You regard.
But how do we get there, Jeff? I mean,
monopolies are unavoidable, and monopolies are unavoidable. What you have to do is take
monopolies aren't always a bad thing. So there's a difference between a coercive monopoly and an uncoercive monopoly. So, like the cable companies that we all hate, the reason we hate them is not because they've cornered the market because they're so wonderful, but it's because governments have given them franchises and made it illegal or almost impossible for other people to compete with them. So that's government. Let's get rid of that. But in terms of if theoretically, if a firm provides a a good or service so efficiently that no one else can compete with it, then that would be to be celebrated. That would be
Okay.
kudos to them.
Yeah,
That's
the
that,
end
that's
process
their
of capitalism is a monopoly. Like that's
Okay.
what you want. You want the best possible
yeah,
solution.
but you
that
have
get.
you have to understand the difference between coercive and non-coercive
Oh yeah,
monopoly. So
definitely.
theoretically that can happen, but it has happened. It is so hard, not only for that to happen, but for it to be sustained. So I think of the example of IBM when I was a kid. There was IBM was Big Blue, and you had to wear, if you worked there, it was like a cult. You had to wear certain clothing and all of that. It was so amazing to work there that people would do whatever they had to work there, because obviously, Selectric typewriters were going to be needed ad
Okay, Jeff.
infinitum.
Okay.
So
Jeff, let
hold
me
on.
cut you
I'm
off
gonna
at
be,
the knees.
I'm almost.
Let's quit with
No, I'm almost done.
anecdotes.
No, I'm
No,
almost done.
we've had enough libertarian anecdotes. What we need is some sort of practical application of
Well,
libertarian.
Do you cut the profits off the corporations? Do you make it unattainable
Okay.
to create
Well-
some sort of imbalance of power? Would that be like an example of a solution?
Well, there was a
In
statement made about coercive monopolies as being these immutable forces, and I was giving you an example of one that wasn't, and you think that's irrelevant. So go ahead and
No,
have a bullshit session.
no. Let's get back to what Pyong was saying. Pyong explained our corporate system of okay, the market is the most purest thing about a libertarian society, right? How can we get to the free market
No,
with what we got?
individual rights and non-initiation of force are the pillars of libertarianism. The market is the economic expression of that.
Pyong, does that make sense to you? I mean, is it workable, practical? How?
Does what make sense? What Jeff said?
How do we get to that libertarian market? That's what I'm asking.
The libertarian market. Okay. I really need to, instead of just out of hand saying it's a practical impossibility, I really need to sit down with Jeff and listen to what he says. Now, as far as the stuff like we have talked about before with the privatized courts and that sort of thing, and the surrounding systems that would have to be put in place to make something like that actually work, would at minimum require a substantial modification to the Constitution of the United States as it stands. Is that possible? Probably not. But maybe Jeff is talking about creating Libertania, Population 1. If and Jeff's been very clear about it before. He says these are ideals
Right.
to strive for. So is it possible? No. Some of the stuff, no. But there's no harm in thinking about it.
Well, and I tell you what, maybe I'm a little bit older than some of you, but the idea that the Soviet Union would just collapse spontaneously was utterly unthinkable when I was a kid. It just would not happen, and yet it did. And so, don't underestimate the power of ideas. And maybe it'll take a huge collapse. But if there aren't another set of ideas in place when it happens, then the chances of getting there are obviously not that great. And I'll give you an example from the opposite side of the spectrum. In the early 20th century, the Socialist Party was just a bunch of knuckleheaded intellectuals and stuff like that. And I'm not a defender of the Socialist Party, but they, at the grassroots, despite having virtually no electoral success, and indeed Eugene Debs was imprisoned by Woodrow Wilson for being a Marxist and a communist. But nonetheless, those ideas were in place and actually were adopted almost to the letter by the Roosevelt administration after the Great Collapse of 1929, the Great Depression. All of the socialist planks pretty much were put into place. The minimum wage, the Social Security, all of these things that were that they were talking about were actually put into place. So never underestimate the power of ideas. It's not just a. If I thought it was just a bull session, I wouldn't be interested in it either. But when there's a vacuum, these ideas do come into place. I hope there's not a horrendous economic failure, although I fear there might be. But my kind of goal in life is to be a part of the effort um, to have an alternative when these systems fail, as they, in my judgment, are doomed to do. So yes, we are talking theoretically. We're talking idealistically, if you will. But we have seen in the past where theory and ideals have come into practice when other things have failed. So that's
Okay, Jeff.
that's
Jeff,
kind of my way of thinking.
what do you think of people that are trying to help the system fail, like Tea Party politicians?
Well, it depends what they think. What I think they're trying to make fail. I'm not an advocate of the
We
Tea
have the
Party.
most-
Isn't variety the part of the deal? Isn't having multiple parties fight over control pretty much? Isn't that kind of what America's about?
I don't want anybody to be in control, so to speak. So I don't want.
That's how we do it. I mean, that's what politics is.
Well,
man.
that's how we currently do it. But maybe we'll see someday that maybe having a winner-take-all system is not such a good idea.
Winner take all.
So I don't have any problems with my neighbors being conservatives or marrying who they want or doing what they want. But maybe the key isn't what people do, but what they force other people to do. So
Okay,
it works for
tax
them.
patriots that don't pay their taxes, aren't they trying to help the system fail?
I think withholding taxes is a nice way to resist if you can get away with it. Absolutely. I try not to. I like working at home and stuff. I pay fewer gas taxes, and that makes the state less powerful. And I think that's overall a good thing. Yes.
Yeah, I have done a little bit of tax work, and it's those were some courses that I really loved. The tax law instructor at my law school, so I took a bunch of her courses. But they don't always get caught, okay? But when they get caught, they are up the creek without a paddle. There is no defense for it.
Oh no, you can't declare bankruptcy.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
you're an indentured servant here in the land of the free. Absolutely.
Right, and it also, in my experience, my client right now actually wanted to engage in a business partnership with a fella, and it was mutually beneficial on all levels. And we put the business entity together, drew up the contract. We're talking to him, and it was going to be an LLC, which is a hybrid between a partnership and a corporation. And what would have happened was, if he would have become partners in this LLC, he would have gotten what's known as a Schedule K, which is a statement of tax revenue, statement of income, partnership income. Okay. And we would have had to have filed that with the IRS. And he says, no, that's not going to happen. And so I asked him why, and I was working with an accountant at the time, and the accountant also wanted to know. And he said, I haven't paid taxes since the Ford administration.
Oh my goodness!
Nice.
Holy cow!
So, good for him.
And then he went into this explanation about why taxes really weren't constitutional.
Oh,
and
yes, I've heard that.
I'd heard all of this stuff before, of course, and the end result was I advised my client. I said, you cannot go into business with this guy because you'll be in business with Uncle Sam before you know it.
Right.
So
yeah, that's horrible, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So it's not really something that you can get around,
Americans still have that spirit of fuck you. We still have that from the Civil War days, that fire in us that makes us want to rebel. No other country has it, dude.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of libertarians who think, oh well, if you go into the Constitution, you can show that the 16th Amendment wasn't properly passed, then you can have your day in court. But unfortunately, there's a lot of libertarians who are in jail who thought that, and whether or not it's true or not doesn't really matter. You're not dealing with some kind of objective court system. You're dealing with it's like dealing with a tiger and saying, well, you shouldn't kill me.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah,
It's like,
there's a special tax court, and when the IRS prepares their cases to go before the tax court, sometimes they will cite tax court precedent. Sometimes the IRS will cite their own memoranda and say it's controlling, and the tax court will frequently say, okay, you're not gonna win, Go ahead.
Right. It's just like if you are interviewed. I don't know. I didn't know this until recently, but if you're interviewed by an FBI agent, and whatever notes they take, those are taken as if it was like a video recording. They're taken as absolute truth. They can write down whatever they want, and you cannot question whatever notes they take about your. And they actually don't like to record them. They would rather take their notes because they can shape the notes to their liking, as opposed to a recording that would in court show that maybe their interpretation wasn't correct. But the actual written notes of an FBI agent are actual. That's evidence. That is it's hardcore evidence, and you cannot dispute whatever they chose to wrote or not about your exchange with them. So we don't have a justice system here. Don't have a justice system in the tax court, and so is it all that far flung to be a libertarian and say this is not the way mankind should advance? I don't think so. I think we should do better than this. We should have.
I do want to say.
Based on voluntary exchange and a market and dispute resolution. I don't think it's all that far flung.
I do want to say to anybody though who may be listening, if somebody tells you that you can get away without paying your taxes, they're doing you a tremendous disservice.
I agree. Yes.
And I would absolutely take that with a grain of salt because it's just not true. It's just not true.
No, it's I agree. If you think you can go lawyer up and you're dealing with a criminal gang that wants their money and they'll pretend to be as legitimate as long as they have to, but
that's the whole sovereign citizen movement.
They want your money. That's there's no way around that, and I totally agree. And I've told even my libertarian friends, you can make those 16th Amendment. Irwin Schiff has made those arguments. Peter Schiff's father, he's in jail. He's in his 80s. He's probably going to live the rest of his life there, sadly enough, very tragically. This is terrific. The land of the free, the home of the brave. It's nothing of the sort.
Okay, go ahead.
I wouldn't go that far. But anyway, go ahead, Bunto. Sorry, buddy.
I was going to say, go ahead, Lyric. You got something to say?
No.
Well, I was going to bring up, so the system is what we have, and, they'll penalize us if we don't go along with the system, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, isn't that the basis of all government? Doesn't government want to be, a body that is healthy, that is, some sort of coherent body of people that is meaningful, doing something? I mean, we can really fault our government, but isn't it what it's supposed to be for a country of 300 million people?
Isn't it what it's supposed to be?
I mean, I can't see our government.
Okay, so we were told, for example, in the last election that was supposed to be transparent, but we have Chelsea Manning, we have Edward Snowden that have actually made government a lot more transparent than it otherwise would have been. And where are they? Edward Snowden is on the run. He's a man without a country. Chelsea Manning is in jail for 35 years for exposing the war crimes of the U.S. government. So to look at this as anything other than a criminal gang, in my judgment, is kind of wrong. But there's all kinds of rationalizations. But we're supposed to be informed about our government under this democracy mythology. We're supposed to be aware of our government, and we're supposed to make these informed decisions. But as soon as anybody comes along and wants to inform us about what it's really doing, they're thrown in jail, and they're incarcerated and marginalized, and they're demonized, and all of this. So I think this is just we talk about religion being the opiate of the masses. Isn't democracy kind of the same thing? Look at what's going on here.
Okay, democracy is a crime ring, Pyong?
What? No. Little bit of hyperbole, maybe.
Does might make right? I mean, does voting? The Nazis voted. They voted in Hitler. They voted in all of these things. Does might make right? Is that sacrosanct?
How do you make people reason? Do you have to educate everyone, and then the system's going to work? How do you get rid of delusion amongst the populace? Pretty much.
Well, you don't do it by having government schools and training people that the government is good and the cops are your friends and the soldiers always do what's right, and our wars are always just, even if we make a mistake sometime, as what's his name said, Pete Seeger.
Okay, the police state, democracy is a crime ring. I mean, what am I missing? How am I not seeing this, Pyong?
Nothing. You got it.
Well, I mean, that's just, yeah. I mean, no offense, Jeff, but it is a little bit a little bit of an exaggeration, or maybe poetic license with what Jeff was saying.
Okay, suppose it's slight exaggeration.
Yeah.
Okay, but okay.
Like saying it's a crime ring.
If it's an exaggeration, okay. If it's a slight exaggeration, so still, how is it satisfactory or?
But isn't it what it's supposed to be? I mean, a big government.
Just put it as individuals that are abusing their power.
So it would be okay if just the right individuals came in. That would be not a really good system if it was entirely dependent upon the right people being involved, because we know through history that most often the wrong people have been in charge. So we need to have a system that can accommodate the wrong people as well.
Oh,
so.
Okay, listen, Pyong, I'm going to have to start hating democracy, right?
Yeah, if you
I'm
want.
I'm really going to have to start to understand where Jeff's coming from.
Oh, well, first of all, we don't have a democracy. We've got a modified republic.
Right.
There are, I mean, and Jeff is kind of, he's having a little libertarian orgasm over there. He's showering in it.
Well, I'm not ready to smoke a cigarette yet. I haven't had it.
So good, buddy.
But and I'm not going to say that Jeff's wrong. I mean, we have a tremendous amount of problems. We do, but you don't necessarily have to hate democracy, Bunto, because it could be that democracy, I'm not saying that it will, but it could be that democracy is the very mechanic that we utilize to get out of some of these problems. If we could, and this is pie in the sky too. I always, I accuse some of Jeff's libertarian policies of being unrealistic, but this is also pie in the sky. But if we could put together a sufficient number of state legislatures that get together and pass the laws to have a constitutional convention, and we get, we amend the Constitution to get money out of politics, to end the revolving door of business entities or special interests in our bureaucracies, to make the right to vote an actual right, standardized voting across the United States. These are actually pragmatic things that we can do that would improve our lot. And these are things that could be, I'm saying potentially, or it's plausible that they're achievable through democracy. So no, I wouldn't say that democracy is what you should hate. No.
Well, I don't think you should hate anything. You should hate injustice and all of that, and the means by which that's derived or secondary. But I would say that democracy has actually been used to legitimize all kinds of really crappy things. And if you say that majoritarianism is the ideal, that could be used to justify any number of terrible things, like slavery was majoritarian. Most people, it could be argued, in the early 19th century actually benefited from slavery. It made agriculture cheap, and it made for an abundance of food. Now, obviously, we found out after slavery that we could have machinery and stuff that could actually make things a lot cheaper and do things like that. But at the time, people thought there was a real problem. The majority, I would say, thought there would be a real problem with ending slavery. So you have to be really
How can you
careful.
say that and then how can you say that and then say no to me when I said that the populace now benefits from wars and stuff, and that they want it, they vote for it? Like,
Well, no,
it's the same thing, kind of, isn't it?
No, it is the same thing, and I would say the same thing. That so what if slavery benefited everybody? It was morally reprehensible, and it should have ended. I think they were wrong about that. I think you're actually wrong that war does benefit people in the long run. Unfortunately, the costs are more diffuse. So war benefits certain people in very concentrated ways, and that's why they lobby for it. But war costs us all a huge amount. It devalues our savings, our income. Most of this inflation and stuff that happens, federal money manipulation is to fund these endless wars that are going on, but they're diffuse. And so no, I think just in the case with slavery that it was not in the long-term interest, even economically, even disregarding the moral costs. It was not in the long-term interest, and it's the same with war, but it's more diffuse. And unfortunately, the people who benefit more from war, their benefits are more tangible and real in the now, and that's why they lobby for it. But no, we all pay dearly. It's why our emails are being spied on. It's why our savings aren't worth anything. We have to speculate in the stock market to protect against inflation. Inflation is definitely driven by the war economy. It's a big part of the war economy. The war economy couldn't happen without it. So we pay dearly for those things. So no, I don't disagree with you at all. It's not at odds with what you were saying.
I'm not advocating war at all, dude. I think it's hard. It's a horrible thing. But
It's a horrible thing.
I see the populace like not doing anything, and for me, if you don't react to an action, then you accept it. And
that's the power of propaganda. It's not the power of truth. The government is, if they're good at anything, it's good. They're good at propaganda. They're good at creating us versus them scenarios. The idea that you would ever be the victim of a terrorist attack, you have a much better chance of being struck by lightning. But this is how people who get these concentrated benefits, they have a high stake in this, and they're going to do what they can to make you feel fearful and that you are somehow benefiting by their taking your money and killing people and destroying their property. That's how it works.
Jeff, what do you like about our government?
What do I like? Well, I like the okay. So this is an old libertarian parable where there was a libertarian on his deathbed, and he was despairing about all the terrible things that the government did. And the one thing that somebody said to make him feel better was, "Thank God we don't get the government that we pay for." So I guess that would be my saving grace too. That at least government isn't more efficient in its aims, because if it was, we would be very bad off. So I'm glad government isn't bigger than it is. So that would be my good thing about government.
Pyong, should I ever
Yo.
take the position that there's nothing good about my own government?
If you want to.
I mean, can you see? They always say it's always good to be even-handed and balanced.
Mm-hmm.
But in the case of our government, should I be one way or the other? Should I be, either for it or against it? Never in the middle?
Oh, I don't know.
It's a combination of your morality and what the benefit cost is.
Well, yeah, I would say that if we have a government, I have actually been very spoken very favorably of Obama's uh, attempts uh, to normalize relationships with Cuba and not have an embargo. I think that's a really great thing. I mean, there shouldn't be any embargo with Cuba. It should be free trade. But since there is a government, I like that Obama is ending that terrible 50-year, as old as I am, 50-year
Okay.
embargo against Cuba. I think that's laudatory. I applaud that.
You know what else, Bunto, you'd like if about the government is if you like go to Thailand and you're a drug mule and you try to board a plane with like 6 kilos of black tar heroin on you and you get busted.
Right.
They might be able to spring out to pokey.
There's a benefit to the government.
There you go. At least the embassy will come and talk with you. You know?
Right.
Well, most
Midnight
of the
Express.
things that we regard as government benefits are only because of other government involvement. So there shouldn't be drug mules. There should be legalized drugs if people want to buy them. I'm not saying everybody should use them, but
Pardon me.
you know, most of these things we thank the government for. Like even this embargo thing that I'm thanking the government for, I'm thanking them for undoing other things, other harm that the government has done.
Yeah. It's a riot. Like we're so subjugated that we have to like get pleasure out of the fact that we
Right.
can trade with our neighbors, man.
Right. It's like, oh, the prison guard's going to let me go outside today. Well, I really like that prison guard, but the prison guard's also keeping me in my jail cell every other day. So, you know, it's you have to put it. I think you have to look at the big picture before you give people a moral blank check.
So my
Right.
takeaway from that is that Jeff wants to market in black tar heroin. Next question, Bunto.
I didn't see it. You mumbled. The last thing didn't come through. But
Black
was this
tar heroin.
All right. Well, gang, I think I'm going to end the hangout. That was an interesting, fascinating discussion we had about
fascinating? Yes.
our government and where it's at right now. So, y'all have a good day. Take care. Have a good night.
All right. Take care.
Mm.